Hey friends, welcome back to String Theory. Today, part two, the epic conclusion of my 19-year-old self having an adventure in Estonia with my friends, my band that I played with for a long time before I was with Disciple. We weren't called I Am Empire at this point, but we were about to be. And I'll talk about that today. And I'll talk about what we've got coming up in the current timeline of the multiverse that is our music. With festivals coming up, summertime is here. We're excited about the block party in Oklahoma City with KOUJ. We're excited about Kingdom Come Festival in Indiana after that. Make sure that you get to both of them. They're both amazing shows that have amazing people putting them on, and we always have a great time. There's always a great crowd at both of these things, so don't miss it out. Don't miss out on it. Doesn't matter how far you are. Fly in, drive, take a boat, take an underground tunnel through a Soviet base if you have to, and make sure you listen to last month's episode of String Theory to get the backstory on where we're picking it up today. So just the quick highlights. Me and the guys I mentioned a minute ago, back in 2007, did a tour trip, went to play music in Europe, and we wound up living in Estonia for a couple months. And last time we left off after I talked about this adventure we had within the adventure of exploring a Soviet Union base that had been abandoned, obviously, at this time. And we're sort of running and walking through these catacombs, exploring with flashlights, acting like we're, some sort of like excavators, bringing home souvenirs and all these little crazy objects that, would have just been complete, like, fiction if you would have told us this would be something we'd do in real life. We would not have believed you, but there we were. And nothing, thankfully, bad or worth noting happened while we were there, other than the adventure of exploring and just, again, having the story to say, having a couple souvenirs to say, like, look, we found this in a, I've got these blueprints, and there's a gas mask and those other things I mentioned too. And that was kind of the story of that trip up to that point. Everything was so fresh and new and exciting. It was this crazy, I'm going to use this word a lot. It was a crazy adventure. It was a crazy coming of age experience. It was the first time that we were out on our own, sort of left to our own devices as adults. And so when I look back, I think, we were just kids. But at that time, that was like so independent and forward for what had taken place, during our lives up to that point. You're just following the structure, the system of your parents' household and school and church. And then all of a sudden, we find ourselves in this, foreign land. So at this point in our trip, we're about a month in. And we have played a few shows. We've made a bunch of friends. We've had these crazy experiences in places we never thought we'd go, seen buildings and cities and castle walls, and really discovered Europe for the first time, which is so full of history. And our layover in Iceland was even exciting on the flight, just to say that we were there. Hey, we were in the airport in Iceland. We've been to Reykjavik. Let's buy a postcard. I remember making, like, our bass player, Josh, making a digital postcard of us in Reykjavik, like, hello from Iceland or whatever. It's like we've been gone for, 3 days. But at that point, it's like basically your first tour. It's your first time outside of the country. We hadn't even really played out of state at that point. And that was, such a huge thing. And looking back with how often I'm gone and traveling and flying now, it's funny. But at the time, those first experiences are so vivid and big, And so that was the story of that first month. But we had several weeks left. And although the tour had already been a bust, the shows didn't get booked. The ones that we did play were, so at best. And they were all central to Estonia, the whole promise of seeing Europe and playing these other countries and touring in a nice vehicle and having food paid for and all that stuff had already kind of fallen to pieces. So we're crammed in our little Opel miniature minivan. It's like one step below a minivan in size, one above a hatchback maybe. And we're basically not able to drive. So our friends that we made would drive us around, or the promoter who came with us. But he actually had to leave at this point in the trip to go back home for his brother's wedding. And so we're here finding ourselves there, in Estonia with no real, supervision or structure anymore. We kind of know what to do. We know where to go, but shows are not there on the calendar. There's nothing to get after. There's nothing to take control of or pursue. So we're drifting. And this part of the trip is like being in the desert. The money runs out because we brought spending money with us, from odd jobs and whatever we could save. But all the money that we had paid up front to the people that set the trip up had gotten sort of mismanaged or budgeted, so that it basically turned into, instead of having $10 a day for food for each of us, we wound up living on about $2.50 a day. And things are cheaper in Estonia for sure, but not that much cheaper. And we were sort of in our own pockets at this point, trying to, eat enough and find things to do. And we were totally fine, but it wasn't very fun. And long tours are hard anyways, but for a bunch of 18, 19, 20-year-olds to, be in this position, there are so many question marks, and there are so many, worries and concerns, because we're not only looking for ways to put gas in the tank when we do need to drive somewhere, or, buy food or whatever, go do something. But we're also beginning to understand that our flights home are not booked. And so we start the conversation with whoever's got the working cell phone, calling these promoters saying, hey, when are we going back? There's no date for us to look at. There's no, countdown. There's no structure in our minds for when we're going to get home. And on the other end of the phone, there's a voice saying, we'll figure it out, or don't worry about it, or that'll get handled when the time comes. And as you can imagine, we are seeing through that promise pretty quickly, understanding how things have gone up to this point. And we get the picture really clear. Okay, there's no plan for us to get out of here. So we know that we're not going to be stuck there forever, but we do have to figure out how we're going to get back. And after waiting and having more conversations and trying to convince these guys multiple times that we needed this to happen, because we had, paid up front into this idea that we're, going to have this all handled and taken care of beforehand, we ended up really having to decide on our own. And so we got to a point where half the band was committed to staying the full term, which was to the end of a second month, and maybe beyond. It might have been 10 weeks total. And then half the band wanted to get the heck out of there and go home. And as anybody knows who's been a part of a business or team of some kind, not everybody thinks the same thing all the time. And so you have to be okay with compromise and be okay with figuring things out, not getting your way all the time. But this was a tough one, because we've got families that are legitimately worried about us at this point, and things that we want to do back home, lives to get back to. And during the days of exploring and playing some shows and making friends and having fun, it's all kind of easy to accept. But when you get into that desert where you're just wandering and no end in sight, that's a really hard thing to convince people to stick with. And so I was on the side of, we need to stay here as long as we said we were going to, right? Because we made the commitment, like I talked about in the last video. We want to stay committed to holding up our end of the bargain, basically. And so a couple of the guys were with me on that, but that stance started losing members pretty quickly as the days wear on. And I remember, I'll never forget the sound of construction. They were working on a building for the entire time we were in this little apartment in Tallinn, next to us or up the road or whatever. And I'd wake up every day at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. to that sound and that drilling and the jackhammering and all that hammering. That was just like this weird, continual cycle. Like, am I actually awake? Is this a dream? Like, where am I? Might have been from a little bit of malnutrition too, because if you give a 19-year-old $2.50 a day to live on, and there's a McDonald's nearby, you can imagine how many chicken nuggets there are to fruit and vegetables. Like, that ratio is not great, unless you're Mr. McDonald. Then it's awesome. But the great European chicken nuggets could not save me from wondering if this was the right choice at this point in time. And as the next couple weeks were on, I remember having this like ice cream popsicle thing, another great nutritional choice, with our singer Austin, and saying, okay, I think it's time that we all get back home. Like, I'm the last guy holding out for this, and everyone's being very like considerate of my stance and respectful, but y'all are right. It's time to get out of here. And so we have the rest of our ice cream, and we get back to our apartment, and we start making phone calls and emails, figuring out how to get home. We ended up having to petition somebody's parent to put it on their credit card for us to get 5 flights home from Europe with all the gear, which was not cheap. And so when we got back, there's this aftermath, this kind of hangover of like, man, what just happened? Like, we thought we were going to do the coolest thing ever. We were going to be the luckiest local band of all time. We get to do this European tour and have fun and make all these, great memories and fans. And some of that was true, but when we got back, it was like, wow, that was a ton of money and a ton of time and energy. And here we are back in San Jose, California, basically in no different position, other than having the experience, right? And so we'd kind of learned at this point to take the good with the bad, but we really felt like we needed to sit down and figure this out. So we had a meeting with this company, with these guys, and it was like, we want to see the receipts from where everything went. We want to have a breakdown and a debrief of what happened, and we want to get paid back for these flights that we just had to fund ourselves or like through our families. And so we have this meeting, and it didn't go well, and it wasn't good, and we never got paid back for those flights. And we ended up really not working with those people anymore. And that was our crash course in music business, I guess. These people really honestly believed in us and didn't try to take advantage of us, but they ended up taking advantage of the collective excitement in a way. They didn't make money. They lost money. We didn't make money, but we weren't after that. We didn't get what we were after with the tour and the shows. And so everybody kind of lost. And for a long time, that's how I felt. Like, this experience is terrible. Like, we are idiots. We are so stupid for doing this. We knew going in there was all these risks, but we had the, blinders on, like, no, it's going to be glorious and fun, and we will be legends, and we will return home as kings, and we'll be, the coolest guys in the scene. And that didn't happen, and everybody knew in our local circuit that it didn't necessarily go well, and they're like, yeah, duh. And so we didn't have that badge that we thought we would when we got back, but the things that we did learn started to present themselves over time. And honestly, my stance on it now, there's no more hard feelings about that situation. Everything is so far in the past. I really am more thankful than anything that those people decided to also take a risk on us, and also, back us musically and spiritually, and give us an inspiration, I guess. They inspired us to keep going and keep trying and keep, growing to be better, and, do bigger things, and believe in ourselves. And, before that, most of the promises people like managers or booking agents and promoters had made to us didn't even materialize at all. So the fact that the whole thing actually happened, does say something about their investment and their plan and their vision. But it just didn't work out. It's really hard. And you have to have a lot of, connections and funding and backing to pull off something that complex, and they just didn't have it. And we were kind of the guinea pig in this situation, and that's how it played out. And again, going forward, it took years, and maybe still is happening, but that experience reminds me constantly of how much I didn't know before and how much I did know after. And it really did change the trajectory of my personal career, and all the careers that the other guys in this band have gone on to pursue in music, and so forth. There's kind of a trade-off, right, between being able to tell a story about something really tragic. I could sit here and look into the camera and say, like, we got totally taken advantage of and stuff, and maybe there's some truth to that, but you're gonna lose, when you think of things that way, you're gonna lose the learning. And at this point, I've fully embraced it for what it is, which was just that, a total pure and unsupervised learning experience. And it was really important for my journey. And so I wonder sometimes, with God's plan, was that a part of it? Was that is that something that needed to happen? I don't know. It doesn't 100% make sense to me why sometimes bad things or tough, challenging things need to happen for the right growth to take place. But maybe that's it. And regardless, it did happen, and it is a huge part of who I am. And so learning to trust in other people when you're young is a huge part of who you are, because you've got people that have your best interest because they really love you. Your parents, hopefully your teachers, your Sunday school people, your pastors, youth leaders, whatever. And so getting out into the business world, you kind of learn through experience like this that there's a difference there, right? There's this big gap between people that really just want what's best for you and want you to have fun, want you to have a good life and be safe. And then people that are also looking for you to do something that benefits them, that you can all benefit from together. And it's for young bands. I know there's musicians and young bands listening. There's going to be a starry-eyed manager, promoter, booking agent, somebody that walks into your band practice or gets you on the phone and makes a big promise and makes, dollar signs and bright lights shine in your eyes. And you get this sort of lure of glory from somebody. There's nothing wrong with taking that meeting and listening to what that person has to say, and even executing a plan with that person. But just remember that those promises are nothing compared to your music and your promise to what you want to do with your music spiritually. And if you're maybe a musician for hire, or you're looking to get into the music industry that way, it's the same thing with a band hiring you and making promises, or a producer saying the same thing. All those people and those words are well intentioned, but remember to curb your enthusiasm. There, I said it. Remember to curb that, because the excitement can really overtake the reality in a lot of those things. So remember to be practical. Remember to plan. Remember to have backups. Our sound guy, our engineer, Josh O'Connell, has a backup for every cable and every piece of gear. And it's true. You need it. You have to have that approach to make this music thing, this band thing, this musician thing, to make it work. You need that. And you can't forget about the passionate energy and excitement that's there, but just remember to keep it attached to what you're doing. Don't let somebody take that from you and override your contribution with the grandeur and the glory and all those things. There's a real reason that we do this. We do it to glorify God. We do it to worship God. We do it to express ourselves. We do it to sow into what we love and use our gifts and what we are supposed to do, what we're born to do. And those things are always going to be the core, always going to be what matter most. They will always be, at the end of the process, more exciting and long lasting than all the promises and, lures and maybe even temptations of what the business and the actual, physical music world brings. But like I said, it's kind of a joke. It is a multiverse. There is a world of your song that exists with just you, or just you and your band. And that song serves a completely different purpose over here when people hear it, or when it gets put on stage, or in a practical sense, getting financing and getting on the road and making shows happen, making records happen. Those are all different areas that need their own attention, and they're all just as real as the other one. But I believe that the real true nature of what we do, why we do it, and the excitement and the passion and the love really lives within that first circle of what you share with the song and the people that help you create it and perform it. So don't lose that. And now that I'm off of that soapbox, what I'll do is get on the storytelling side again, and just give you a quick rundown of what happened after we got home. So the meeting happens, and the debriefing and the sort of hangover and recovery all goes down. And what do we realize? That it didn't go well as a trip, but we were alive while we were there, right? We had the time of our lives in so many ways. You can't say that about 100% of the days and time that we were there, but when it was happening, it was so special and so, fulfilling, I guess, because that's what we were after. How do we tour? How do we do this for a living? And that just gave us that taste, that preview. And so we, at this point in time, I've been avoiding covering this just because I don't want to confuse you guys. But the backstory is the band was called Vespera. It's a Latin word that our friend came up with. It means, prayer beneath the stars, I believe, worship beneath the stars. It's a really cool, high school band name. And, Mozart had used it in some of his compositions as titles. So we're like, oh, this is really cool and musical. I still love that name. It's got a special, place in my heart, I guess. But there was another band. We're out in California. Over in Connecticut, there's another band called Vespera, who was not active. I think their recordings were done in like 2002. So 5 years at this point had gone by without, them releasing anything new. But they had a dad manager, or a dadager, I guess you could say, who was very protective of their, entity. And he actually brought a suit against us because we were this band that was starting to get some plays on MySpace or iTunes. And then we were posting a bunch about doing this European tour. So I think we kind of, barked louder than our bite was ever going to be. And they noticed. And he brought a suit against us to, stop using the name because they had the copyrights for this name, which they did. And we kind of tried to wait it out and see if, okay, can this really be happening? We get home from this trip and all this stuff, and now we're going to get our name taken away. We've released 2 EPs under this name and kind of built the image of who we are with this name. But yeah, we got a email from iTunes letting us know that they're going to be taking our music down, and a message from probably Tom at MySpace. Old guy joke. If you know Tom, you know. But MySpace did message us saying that they were going to delete our page, which at that time was like Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and Twitch and Twitter all rolled into one thing. And we were like, oh God, we can't lose that. Like all our plays and, fans and pictures, we would have no way to like recover from losing those things. And we had no money or energy or interest in like fighting this, right? So that was the moment where we changed the name to I Am Empire. We just liked that name. I don't know that it was the best choice, but hey, that's what we landed on. And we made sure no one else had it. So that worked. And it was really representative of a big shift in life for all of us, because after something like that, it all splinters. Okay. Do we really want to keep doing this? Do we change our sound? Do we change what we do? Do we stay on this same path in life? Like, we just saw this huge, 3 or 4 year chapter of being a local band come to this, sort of boiling point with this trip, and it didn't go our way. So what now? What's next? Tons of question marks. Well, we ended up, as you know, pushing forward, and we did end up over the course of that year losing our second guitar player and our drummer. But we added Dan Otis on guitar to fill that spot, and we added Eric Martin on drums to fill that spot over the course of figuring things out for several months or a year. And that was the band I Am Empire. That's what we became. And a lot of you heard of us, maybe listened to us through the discipled channels, Christian rock channels, Radio U, internet stuff throughout that time. So if you did, thank you. Hope that you can always get a kick out of listening to those records we made. And I do always have hope that I'll get to make more music with those guys in the future, even though we'll never be a band again. I don't think, I don't see how that'd be possible, but, doing a song together or something seems like it would always be another fun thing to try. So we'll see. But yeah, we, at this point in 2008, had this huge shift and this huge reset. And so for my life, where I'm kind of going with all this is this little detail of something that happened on that trip in Estonia. Many of you have heard, if you play guitar, music, whatever, you've heard of this this company called Orange. They are an English company that make guitar amplifiers and cabinets and stuff. And at this point in time, they're kind of the like cool alternative to Marshall and Mesa, and really popular with indie bands and stuff. And I'd heard a couple Orange amps and was not really impressed. It was sort of, not my style. It wasn't very metal. I wanted to play the, PV 5150s, the Eddie Van Halen stuff, the, real crushing, awesome palm mute amps. And Orange just didn't do it for me. So I always stayed away from them. But one of the shows that we ended up actually playing in Estonia, there was another band that let us use their gear as backline. So I had my, favorite 5150 Van Halen amp, and I had to use this orange speaker cabinet for that show because we obviously can't bring a giant speaker cabinet over there with us. And a lot of the shows we did, we had to plug our huge, nice tube amp heads into these little tiny practice amp speakers and hope they didn't explode. So getting to use an actual speaker cabinet was a huge privilege on this Estonian adventure. But I knew it wasn't going to be like the best thing I ever heard. I wasn't really into these amps, That's my favorite color, sure, but that's not my favorite sound. But what I'd never tried was my amp through this speaker cabinet. When I plugged in, I was shocked at how everything that I always wanted my amp to do, it was doing through this speaker cabinet. It had the same speakers that I'd used a bunch of times, vintage 30 Celestians, which is like a really nice industry standard that's in everything. But the way that they built this cabinet was totally different. And it was thicker and it was bassier and it didn't have the annoying high end that I'd kind of like already started hating at this point in my tone journey. And I loved it. It totally altered my like sense of priorities for live guitar rig. And to this day, I still use an orange 212 speaker cabinet side stage every show with Disciple. I've had it for 10 years up there on stage with us. And it is actually black, but it is the orange brand, and it's a tank. It's made it through a lot of miles, and all without a road case. So they're basically the most durable and, in my opinion, probably the best sounding cabs that you can get. And I say all that because the course of my life totally changed again because of that experience. When we got home and we went through all these changes and we decided to keep going and keep playing shows, keep growing and evolving as a band, try to get back on tour, but do it the right way, do it at home, of course. We knew that we needed that sound and we wanted that speaker cabinet and that tone to be a part of our, our show and what we brought to the table. And so we found the only shop in the Bay Area at this time in 2008 that sold orange amplifiers. And we realized that they weren't like the big mainstream brand that you could buy at Guitar Center or whatever. And we thought that was really cool. And so we found this little local shop in Morgan Hill, California called The Music Tree. And we went there and we played a couple amps and speaker cabinets that they had for sale and immediately started saving and bought everything that we could from that brand and started using it live. And part of that was at this point in time, especially being, 20 years old, you're putting things on layaway and making payments. You don't have, I think I had a car payment, but you don't have a mortgage and a lot of bills to pay. So like a monthly bill for a guitar amp is totally acceptable. Credit card, sure, max it out. Great idea. And every month I'm coming down to this little shop to make payments, and I made friends with these guys. Next time I'll tell more of an in-depth story about how I worked somewhere else at home before I found these folks at this music shop. But every time I'd come down there, I thought to myself, like, oh, this is such a cool, cozy little mom and pop music shop. Such an awesome environment. Everyone that works here is really cool. I'd love to work here one day. And they ended up having a open position within a couple months. And long story short, I started working at this place, and I worked there all the way up until joining Disciple for the next 6 years. And until I moved out here to Nashville, that was my home. That was my place. Those were my people. I moved there when Natalie and I got married. That was where we started our life together. And it just became the most like special piece of my life at that point. And it all happened through this weird string of going to Estonia and playing, maybe because they're English company, they're more like popular in Europe, and playing this local Estonian band's cabinet, coming home, finding where to get one, and ultimately landing in a place that became, um, a real like first home for me as a young adult. And I managed that store, and it's closed now. It's gone. Thank you, Amazon Prime and Guitar Center and all the big box companies. But that's the way it goes. Mom and pop shops that last 40 years, that's a good run, and it's just not a feasible thing in the modern world. But what that shop did is it allowed me to get my first glimpse into the music product industry and buy and try a lot of different guitars and gear, but more importantly, stay connected to musicians and spend my entire day in music, even at work, which at that point in time I was working at the mall before this. So much more fun, so much more fulfilling, and purpose driven for me to work for this shop selling guitars and amps and basses and all this stuff. And it also gave me a platform to teach. So I started giving lessons there, which a lot of you guys know I do to this day, Zoom lessons and co-writes, and all that comes from working for them. And all that comes from just playing this amp one time. And I think about it from time to time, like, would I have ever found that shop if we didn't take that trip? It's 15 miles from my house, but I had to go 5,000 miles or whatever to Estonia to make that connection. And so it's not always about how close things are, right? Sometimes it's about how we go in this big circle to find something and come back to it. And the other thing, and the most maybe important thing that the music tree did for me, was it gave me the opportunity to work and pay my bills or whatever while I was home. But they were totally fine with me going on tour because they were musicians and they did the same thing. The people that I worked for. So all of my early touring time with I Am Empire and first year with Disciple, I'm just given the green light to go and have a job when I get home. And it might sound like a small thing, but that was the difference for me, because when you work for a company, some of the other guys worked for Starbucks or car dealerships and whatever. And they all figured it out. We always made it happen, but it was always such a struggle for them to get time off and use vacation hours and, have to get technically fired and then rehired when we got home. To have that open window allowed me to accept touring as a part of my life and a part of the flow, a part of my kind of like professional identity, I guess. Go out, play shows. I'd be gone with I Am Empire for 3 weeks or 2 months or whatever. Come home, have a job, teach guitar, restring some old acoustics, hang out with the other instructors, meet bands, sell them gear, teach classes to kids that wanted to learn guitar, and then go right back. And so that became this really like safe place for me. And it makes me emotional to think about what a gift that was during that time, because, I could have wound up, having to stay at the mall. I could have wound up having to work for a company or, be forced to choose between music and work. And I think I would have chosen music still and touring, but it just would have made everything harder, would have made everything more gray and gloomy. But instead it was really happy, and it was really, everyone was proud of me, and everybody was encouraging, and my family and my friends were all behind me, and the guys I was in that band with were my pals, and we just had this amazing time that I'll continue to talk about on this show for the next 5 or 6 years, where again, learning over and over that things don't go perfect, the promises don't all get kept, and the grandeur and the sort of words I keep using here, like the glorious things that we get our eyes fixed on, maybe they don't all happen. But Estonia taught us to battle through the challenges and to know what to expect practically, and to be okay with figuring things out, like the van broke down again, or we have to change a tire in the desert, or we have to reschedule a show or book a tour ourselves. All those things were small challenges compared to how are we going to get home from this country, thousands of miles away, or how are we going to eat today, or how are we going to, fit our gear into this tiny car or whatever it is. And so my infinite thanks goes out to the people from that time that made all those things possible for us. I still don't know why I've been surrounded with people my entire life, like you guys watching, who have literally taken time and money and energy and love out of their, life and put it into me and put it into the guys that I've been in bands with and projects that I've been a part of. And it's pretty overwhelming to just sit here and think back, like, the better part of 20 years, it's been all propped up by other people's love and support. And so I just basically want you guys to know that that's not lost on me. It's not lost on these guys. And I want to make a point, if I can, every time I do an episode like this, to just say thank you and just say, like, seriously, this is not possible without your support. And, we might not be the idea of perfection in a lot of people's minds, but we are genuinely after what we've been called to in this band. And I talk a lot about my young life because you guys know what I do in Disciple and what I've done, but I want you to know what shaped me and what allowed me to become this man that I am today, and what happened for me to have really all these privileges to be able to play and call this dream a reality. So thank you for those of you who are listening that were a part of helping me get to Europe that first time and helping me get home. And thank you to those of you that are continuing that now. And you're putting diesel in the bus, you're putting food on our tables, you're putting hope in our hearts to continue to make music and continue to go out and do what we do, which is exactly what we were born to do. We were born to do it, and we love to do it too. So thank you for giving us that opportunity and that ability. It really comes from you, all of you guys. So before I go, last thing I want to say is that, like I mentioned, there's a festival coming up called Kingdom Come Fest in Greentown, Indiana on June 18th. And I want you all to be there. And here's why. There's a ton of great festivals that have a long history across the whole country, and some of them have gone away, which is sad. Some of them have continued or come back, which is awesome. And you should keep supporting, your local Christian music festival. If you like going, make sure you buy tickets and go. Take the family, take your friends. Keep these people encouraged the same way you're keeping us encouraged to the best of your abilities. With Kingdom Come, it's a relatively young festival in the grand scheme, but it's doing something special in the face of adversity. It's growing every year. Every time we go there, there's more people. There's more music. There's an extra day this year. So it starts Thursday and goes through Saturday. And I'm going to just read you some of the bands that are going to be there. So you know about Rusty Ship, you know about Death Therapy. They're going to be there on Thursday. On Friday, you know about Relentless Flood. They're going to be there. You know about Set for the Fall, GFM, Chaotic Resemblance, Decipher Down's going to be there, and a whole bunch of others. And then Disciple will be there on Saturday night. And before we play, you've got The Protest, Zana, Matt Baird, Convictions, Bread for War, I Am Spartacus, Amongst the Giants, Matt Moore, Relesser, Points, 3 Days Under, Reclaim the Day. Made some music here at Dive Bomb with those guys. Upstanding Gents, Forsaken Hero, which I know Casey from Forsaken Hero, what's up? True Revival, Welcome, Anthem and Pledge, which is not a band, and I just read that like it was. welcome, anthem, and pledge is just what they do at the beginning of the day. So real time, no edits. This is it. This is how it goes. Anyways, the list of bands I'm reading off there is just to let you know that there's, and that's not even the other stage, by the way. That's just the main stage. So there's a whole other slew of artists. So go to the kingdomcomefestival.com website and check it all out. I'm going to keep sharing some of the excitement that I've got right now for this, because with a new festival bringing new bands, it gives us a chance to keep this whole thing going as a scene, industry, whatever you want to call it. There's a certain like niche market for what we do with Christian rock and metal. And we don't do this because we think that we're going to become, famous and rich and whatever. There's not even a market for that in mainstream metal. So I don't really think there's any logic to think like we're on a path towards, some kind of, stardom or whatever. But we've had so much of what I call success in this band, even before I was a part of it, for sure. And it's all due to the community, the bands and the people that support them and the fans and the conversations that happen, the crossover of like playing a festival with all these young artists. I want them to look at Disciple and want our spot. I want the young bands to be earning those headlining positions and earning those number one singles and all the things that we've been, fortunate enough to have earned, or a combination of earning things and things being given to us and blessed with, and so forth. I want the young bands to be after that, because you guys have something that Disciple had when Kevin, Brad, and Tim were young, and what I had when I was with Vespera / I Am Empire. And it doesn't always work out in the same way as it does for bands like Disciple, but the commitment and the pursuit of that is what makes it good. And I want you guys to stay on it and stay encouraged and stay after it, because some of these bands that I've worked with, Relentless Flood, Reclaim the Day, etc., they're going to be looked at in one part of our industry as new bands, and they're up and coming, but they are the future, and they are the people and the musicians and the amazing songwriters and performers that are going to keep this thing going and keep it alive, and I'm proud of Zana for just trying to think of everyone on this list, artists like her for coming on the scene and accomplishing all the things that she has with her band. And you got bands on here like Spoken, who have been around just as long as Disciple and kept it going. There's a whole story behind every member of every band, and it all works together to make a day like Kingdom Come Festival happen. And to get 3 of those days with all these bands is so huge. So I'm going to keep posting on socials in the coming weeks about who those artists are, when they're playing, and why you should listen to them, and why you should get their record, and why you should show your friends all this music that we've got before us now. And in addition to that, I want to just give a little setup to what I'm going to play for you today. I feel like I started this 2-part series talking about the war with Russia and Ukraine and how Estonia fits into that, and how there's so much division, right? But in the face of that, we find a way to make unity a reality, right? We make that happen. We don't make it happen with only by ceasefire or peace, which we do need. We make it happen by going a step further beyond the borders on the map, right? Beyond the geography of the land that we live on. It goes to a deeper human level, and we make that unity and we make that peace spiritually. And all of these kingdoms that we think we're setting up for ourselves with our band and our big ideas about our fame and our what we're going to accomplish, or our job and our family and our political party that we root for, and our sports teams or whatever, we have all these little kingdoms that we want to sit on that throne. We want to be in charge, or we want to be a part of the team that wins, and it's in our nature as Americans to be competitive. And I think there's a good way and a healthy way to do that, but don't lose sight of God's kingdom, of the big picture, of what we pray for every day. Let your will be done, your kingdom come, the thing that this festival is named for. Don't lose sight of that, because that goes beyond all those things. That kingdom has room for discussion and different ideas about how to achieve good things, and different tastes in music, and different tastes in style, or different ways that people worship God, different ways that people live their lives and do ministry. There's all kinds of variety and diversity that we have within God's kingdom, and that's the one that we will achieve that peace and that ultimate fulfillment with and through. And only God can bring it. So we just have to continue to be as strong as we can, to pray and to do and to take action. And I hope that this little thing called music in the grand scheme can provide a lot of encouragement and support. And I mean, honestly, it can just be fun. Come to this festival, experience what this whole thing means, and give your focus to supporting God's kingdom. What does it mean for your kingdom to come and your will be done? Which part of my kingdoms do I have to let go of for that to happen, right? If there's a world where there's no pain anymore, let me receive it. Let's figure out how to do that, what we need to do to make that happen on an individual level, how we come together, and I'll do that together too. So I'll see you at this festival. I hope you like this guitar playthrough. It's just a few notes I put together that Kevin put some awesome words over, and it's called Kingdom Come.